Howdy folks, my name is Terry, and here on the Geek and Sundry Vlogs channel, you and I get to have a wonderful conversation about the world of tabletop miniature wargaming. Now, I make a few videos about games from the Warhammer and the Warhammer 40,000 world. I mean, I've done painting tutorials from those games, I have talked about lore from those games, and I've even complained about Games Workshop as a company. And while I've made quite a bit of videos about them, I don't normally talk about Warhammer or Warhammer 40,000 as games that people should start the hobby in. And there's a couple reasons for this, and most of it has to do with the fact that it tends to take a pretty substantial investment in terms of money and in time to get rolling in both those games. So I thought today I could talk a little bit about games which are a lot easier to jump into, a little more friendly to both the wallet as well as the impatient gamer who wants to just get gaming. So we're going to start exploring some alternatives to Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 today. Let's start by talking about Privateer Press. Now, Privateer Press makes War Machine and Hordes, and these two games kind of have a very different aesthetic and feel. War Machine feels like a science fiction game, and Hordes feels much more like a fantasy game, but both games are actually compatible with each other, which means you can play this kind of cross-game mix called Warma Hordes with them. The nice thing about it is it allows for you to have a nice deep feeling game with a lot of variation, but it also gives you the opportunity to kind of collect what you want and not be limited in terms of community. These games aren't kind of competing against each other for fans. If you're looking for epic scale type of games, look no further than Spartan Games. They make some wonderful games, including Dystopian Wars, which is a steampunk type Navy fleet game that also has like an armored and aerial kind of division. There is also the Firestorm universe, which has this spaceship type game called Firestorm Armada, which is incredible and feels both epic and strategic, and also the newest release of that universe, Firestorm Planetfall, which feels very much like a miniature World War II type game with those mechanics, but totally in this wonderful science fiction universe. What I love about Spartan Games is how wonderful their mechanics are and how interesting they are, at the same time as how gorgeous their models are. The sculpts in their models are fantastic, and if you're interested in finding out what those models might look like, check out my Planetfall unboxing. The starter set is just absolutely gorgeous, and in the unboxing you can hear me squeal all about the contents. Now, while I have recommended a whole bunch of larger scale games, so far I do tend to skew towards skirmish style games for recommending to people who've never played mini war games before. One such game is Malifaux, which is made by a company who nerd fighters might be familiar with, Weird, who also made a game called Evil Baby Orphanage. Malifaux is really interesting in that it has this wonderfully distinctive steampunk aesthetic, but it also uses a fate deck mechanic, which is essentially a replacement for dice. Instead of rolling dice to determine outcomes of things like attacking, you draw cards. And, well, for people who have had some really bad and improbable dice rolls in their life, this card mechanic is actually very appreciated and useful. Now, let's say you're a fan of things that happen to marry, like, Westerns with science fiction. Then go no further than checking out Wild West Exodus. Wild West Exodus is a universe that is extremely rich, extremely intricate, and extremely interesting. It has everything that you would expect from Westerns, like lawmen and outlaws and natives and missionaries, but also includes interesting things like cyborgs and aliens to bring into the fray of the world. It's kind of a perfect time to be checking out this game as well, since they are doing their Kickstarter as of March 1st to expand that universe to include those aliens I mentioned earlier. So now is the time to kind of check it out and get into it on the total scrim. In case you haven't seen some of my other videos, I do recommend a lot of games in those videos as well, and I'll link and mention them right now. There's Star Trek Attack Wing, Dungeons and Dragons Attack Wing, Bushido, Strange Aeons, and Zombicide, all of which are wonderful, interesting, rich games in their own right. This video is a little bit of a throwback for me to one of my first Geek and Sundry audition videos, where I asked people to tell me what they were kind of into so I could recommend tabletop miniature war games for them to try out. I also wanted to do a kind of a full circle thing, since this is my last video here on the Geek and Sundry Vlog channel. Don't worry though, I'm still going to be making all sorts of tabletop and mini wargaming content on my personal channel, so you should totally check me out there. And also, I'm still very much a part of the Geek and Sundry family. Gang sign, of course. But you can find me possibly in the very near future on geekandsundry.com. So do check out the website and check out all the folks who may be familiar to you over there. Until next time, and I do mean this most sincerely, thank you very much for hanging out with me, and I will see you soon.